You guys don't know how many times I've filmed this, but it's been a lot. It's been a lot. Also, this is like this is a tarot card, and I apologize that you're seeing the unfortunate part of it, but these are the cards you were dealt, and that's what we're gonna have to deal with today. I was having a bad day today. Okay, well, I was awake for like 36 hours, and then I slept for like 12. And then I woke up and I did some work, and then my mom went somewhere. I think she's having like a social distancing thing with her friends, and I was like, I'm kind of hungry. So I ordered, my stomach was upset, by the way. So I ordered sushi, right? Ate that, miso soup, cool, tea, also. And then I was like, you know what's a good idea right now? If I ordered 25 donut holes from Dunkin' Donuts. Why would I do that? Also, it was $16. What? Honestly, no, that's like more than $1 for each donut hole. Anyways, no. No, that's just not correct. And my math right there was completely off. Moving into what we're going to talk about today, because I feel like that's something we should start talking about. So I've done quite a few of these little videos for my projects. We had the president's one, I think. Then we had the other one, I think the stand-up one. I feel like I did one more, but I can't remember. I don't know, man. I can't even remember my own name, to be honest. You're probably wondering, Parker, what's today's about? What's today's topic? You can choose anything. What did you choose? Have you guys ever seen the film Call Me By Your Name? Nope. No. Wrong movie. Whoa. You know, the American History Story. Call Me By Your Name? No. What we're talking about today is the situation from the movie Catch Me If You Can. So, like, opposite side of the spectrum from Call Me By Your Name. And honestly, I'm sorry to disappoint. But Frank Abagnale is the subject of the video today. And if you haven't seen the movie, I really don't know what to tell you. This video is for sure gonna spoil the plot because it's about his life and about some of the details they left out in the movie. And also just some details that are really interesting. Getting right into it. Biting the meat and potatoes. I apologize. Frank was born on April 27th in Bronxville, New York. So if that doesn't tell you something about his confidence, I don't know what will. I've never met someone that is from New York and still lives in New York that isn't like, hey, I'm walking here. He was one of 4 siblings, which they did not show at all in the movie. In fact, he was an only child in the movie. So life goes on, you know. Frank is just being a kid. So his parents divorced on April 1st, 1962, and he decided to live with his father. He was a lot closer with his father. But his father was still in love with, like, Frank's mom, his ex-wife. Frank would come to work with his dad sometimes. His first con was on May 2nd, 1963, and he used his dad's gas credit card to take some girls out. He was a player. He was a player, and he was a con man, and we like that. Also, if you haven't seen the movie, Leonardo DiCaprio plays Frank, so that doesn't convince you to watch it. I don't know what does. The whole situation fell through when Frank's dad got his bank statements back, like his credit card bills back, and he was like, a couple thousand. Frank secured thousands of dollars. But Frank's dad really was like chill, and I think he was honestly kind of impressed with it because he was just like, alright, do your thing. They opened up a credit card for Frank to continue. So that's good. That's good parenting. If Frank's dad wasn't being beat up enough by having to divorce his wife and also having his child steal thousands of dollars from him, Frank ran away. So, June 3rd, he started preparing for his future. This is when he altered his driver's license to appear 10 years older, and he also forged some, like, diplomas to make it look like he had an education. He did not have an education. He was extremely smart, but he did not go to school. He did this so he could get better job offers at his age, because he was 16 at the time. So Frank was like, no, I want a real job. But then he kind of like felt like he wasn't earning enough. Yeah, shoo shoo. None of this poor stuff. His next type of illegal income was writing bad checks, and basically it's when someone writes a check on a bank account that either doesn't exist or has like insufficient funds. How he was able to do this is the period between the bank knowing that it was a bad check and Frank having his money was enough for Frank to like get away. He stopped after a while, or like chilled out with it, because he was like, there's probably a pretty high chance I'm gonna get caught. Next, he created a fake FAA license, which is a pilot's license. When you get a pilot's license and then you're like, I'm a pilot, and then people are like, really? What does that button do? You're like, the way Frank got around this is basically he interviewed a lot of other pilots that worked for Pan Am, which is like the airline that he worked for, and he made it seem like he was writing a paper for school and was just asking them questions, but he was really gathering information so he didn't like stick out like a sore thumb. February 2nd, he started deadheading, which is basically like hitchhiking for like crew members of the airline. Before I keep going, I want you guys to know that Frank is like 17 at the time when he started deadheading. Most of us are 17 at this point, and you look dumb. You look stupid. This guy was a pilot, but not. And what are you doing right now, right? You're probably in PJs. Don't become a pilot right now. I feel like that's one of like the most dangerous jobs. Don't do that. Just wait until after quarantine and then you can start your little con journey. Time goes by and Frank feels like the FBI is on to him, so he moves to Atlanta, Georgia. And obviously he needs money to survive, so he's probably gonna like work at a fast food restaurant, or now that he has his 10-year plus license, maybe he'll work like at a adult job. Or maybe he'll start writing bad checks again. Well, he becomes a doctor. And I did not leave out anything about him going to medical school. So you know how like adults always like, for you to get good grades, you're like, would you want the doctor that graduated school with A's or graduated school with C's? You're like, I want the one that graduated with A's. How about you got the doctor that graduated with no grades because he never went to school? He was mostly in the position of like taking care of the interns, so he didn't have much interaction with people, but like there would be some situations where he would have to like fake his way through and make it look like he knew what he was doing. And what made him leave was when he, on January 2nd, he was taking care of a kid medically, and the kid almost died. So Frank was like, can't really do this anymore. At least you know he's a good Samaritan. On April 2nd, 1967, he starts work as an attorney in Louisiana. A lot of people question if he truly passed the bar exam, because like you have to take the bar exam to become a lawyer. And he did. He actually studied for it, and he truly did pass the bar exam, which is like a really hard test. And he worked as a lawyer for a little bit, but the reason he quit his job is because he told everyone that he graduated from Harvard, but he worked with a Harvard alum, and so the Harvard alum started talking to Frank and was like, yo, I went to Harvard, you remember da-da-da? And Frank had to be like, yes. Well, he quit because people were gonna get suspicious of him. Next job, Frank was a professor at BYU. So this is where his famous like scene in the movie came from, where he was giving a speech and he was like, I need 7 girls to be on the crew with me. That was me doing a New York accent, and I hope it was good. So he got some girls to be on his crew, to make him blend in when the FBI was looking for him. But basically, this was just his way of like getting out of the country. So from June 3rd, 1968 on, he stayed in Multiplier, France. By the way, if I pronounce any French words, I am not French, and I'm not perfect. And so if you make fun of me, that's rude, and also disrespectful, and also not very nice, and also rude. He had a connection with France because his mom was born in France, and also he had like a girlfriend up north. March 2nd, 1969, Frank was arrested by the French police. Before his arrest, he defrauded banks across the country for more than $300,000, and he decided he wanted to start a new life. So he was stealing money to be good again. The way he got arrested is an ex-girlfriend recognized his face on a wanted poster and was like, I know him and I know where he is. Honestly, it was probably the right thing to do, but also, like, snitches, you know the rest of the phrase. I'm not gonna say it. But March 31st, 1969, he was sentenced to prison in Perpignan. Again, I'm not French, I don't know. And 6 months into his sentence, he was sentenced a year, by the way. I don't know if I said that. He almost died from malnutrition and pneumonia because where they kept him, like, everything was made of stone. And it was cold, and it was dark, and you're probably like, oh, of course it had a toilet. Frank was living and sleeping in his own fecal matter. When people ask, like, the prison owners, the CEO of prison, that's not a thing. Like, the head chief, the sheriff of the prison. When people asked the prison why they did this, they said, like, the conditions prevented criminals from recommitting a crime. No. October 1st, 1969, he was sent to Sweden, a Swedish prison. He wasn't, like, free. The conditions were much better. They worked out a deal that Frank would be able to go back home to the USA for a trial, basically. So April 4th, 1970, the day of Frank's plane ride home. And if you've seen the movie, you see that Frank, like, escaped the plane from the washroom in the airplane. And you're probably like, man, they made that up. No, they didn't. Frank unscrewed the little compartment where the toilet is. I don't know. I have never tried to escape a plane, so I can't tell you what I'm talking about right now. Lifted it up, and there was like a place he could fit through, so he went to the bottom of the plane and he waited for it to touch down before he like ran on the tarmac. Could you imagine the agents from the FBI being on a plane, pulling in to the terminal and being like, where's Frank? And then you see him running, but everyone knew who he was, so it wasn't like he was going to be missing for very long. So June 2nd, 1970 was when he was caught again by the police. So he had like a couple months of like, woohoo! He was awaiting a flight to South America. He was so close. He was so close. And then the Canadian police recognized him and they were like, He was released into the custody of the FBI, and then he was brought to a federal detention center, and after that he was transferred to a prison in Atlanta. He was in prison now, and so you're probably like, oh man, story over. Frank, dude, you got arrested, and you're in prison. There's no way you can get out of this situation. He escaped prison with the help of an ex-girlfriend, and also he convinced some of the prison guards that he wasn't an inmate. You're probably wondering, Parker, how do you do that? Because you're in like a little uniform. In which I'd answer, you know, I don't know. January 1st, 1971, he joins the FBI. Not illegally. He was granted parole by the FBI because he knew so much about falsifying checks and identifications. He served out his sentence working for the FBI. But after he served, he still worked for the FBI, and he started teaching like other people how to look for certain things on checks and how to know like if it's a fake check or like how to find out. I'm not a policeman and I'm not a con artist, so I can't really tell you what he did. He's now considered one of the most valuable people in the FBI for catching some of the world's most exclusive check forgers and counterfeiters. Frank has also helped with all the big bank companies to create safer checks so it's harder to con them. Again, I don't know. And he has his own financial fraud consultancy. He also has his own financial fraud consultancy company. If you're wondering, he has 3 children and he is happily married. And his net worth is 10 million. But that's legal money. His net worth is 10 million in legal money that he earned, not illegally, because that's what the word legal means. The moral of the story is villains do win. No, but seriously, this is my way of telling you guys that I personally am going to follow in Frank's footsteps. I don't know much about banks and how they work. I have trouble with my debit card as is. I'm kidding. And please don't use that clip out of context, because if things get hard and I get caught doing something, now you have evidence of me saying I'm gonna do it. But I won't. But if times get hard, I'm kidding. I don't know what I'm saying right now. And there is probably the footage that I'm gonna put in from that situation is probably a condensed version of it, because I'm pretty sure I just did that for 5 minutes. Thank you guys for another amazing year, and I hope to see your beautiful, luscious faces in the fall. Oh, why did that happen?